The gentlewoman for the city, Ms. McClellan.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. Speaking to the bill.
Gentlewoman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, normally when we debate abortion issues, we think about it from the context of an unwanted pregnancy. I'm coming at it a little differently because our abortion laws also impact pregnancies that were wanted, sometimes very desperately so, but go wrong. Because under Virginia law, there is no difference between an abortion and a procedure done to complete an incomplete miscarriage. As a matter of fact, it's the exact same medical procedure. So there are 2 points I want to make. First, the purpose of this bill is supposed to determine gestational age for the purpose of informed consent. But did you know that ultrasounds cannot always determine gestational age, particularly early on in a pregnancy? When I got pregnant and I went to the doctor, I was within a month. And I went to the doctor and they asked me, what was the first day of your last period? And I happened to know because I had gotten on an airplane that day, but I know a lot of people don't, but they pretty much will guesstimate when it is. Turns out that tends to be much more accurate in determining gestational age and the due date. And that's what they used before ultrasound. But when I did come back and got an ultrasound, because often through your pregnancy you come and you get one, and in January I went, and they couldn't determine gestational age because of the way the fetus was positioned. They said, okay, well, we can't get gestational age, so you're going to have to come back and do another ultrasound. And I had to wait, I think it was a couple of weeks, and then they could determine gestational age. So if you have a woman early enough in the pregnancy who goes to get an ultrasound, might not tell you what the gestational age is. Now, every time I went to the doctor for a checkup, and every time they checked for the fetal heartbeat, or I had an ultrasound, my heart would skip a beat. Because I was terrified, what happens if there is no sound? What happens, and this did happen at one of my ultrasounds, what happens when the technician says, and then goes and calls someone else to look at it, and it's like someone has gripped your heart in your hand. Now, for me, everything worked out. It was just a glitch that day. But I have a friend who went for her ultrasound, and there was a glitch that turned out she had lost her baby. She was far enough along in the pregnancy that for her to come back, she had to come back to have a D&C, which is an abortion, to complete that miscarriage, to terminate that pregnancy. Now put yourself in her shoes. This was a child she very much wanted, would have been her first. She and her husband. Those of you here who have been pregnant know you're already pretty emotional. You have to go home and come back to deliver a child knowing it's dead. As I read this bill, her doctor would be required by law to do another ultrasound. Her doctor would be required by law to say, I have to do an ultrasound. Would you like to see it? Would you like to listen for a heartbeat, knowing perfectly well there won't be one? Think about that for a minute. That makes this bill not just emotional blackmail in some cases, but downright cruel in others. And that is why, well, let me back up. So that's the worst case, but there are other cases when an abortion might be necessary for a wanted pregnancy that we don't really talk about in the abortion debate. When you have a multiple pregnancy, think Octomom or whoever, which often happens when you've gone through fertility treatments, the odds of any one of those surviving, any of those children surviving, are very slim. So families are forced with the decision, do I roll the dice and lose all of them? Or do I reduce the pregnancy to 2, where the odds are greater than 50% that they'll both survive? That's an abortion. And you put yourself in that family's shoes and think about what they'd had to go through to make that decision, which is their constitutionally protected right to make. Now, after they've made that very difficult decision, their doctor is required by law to say, I have to give you an ultrasound. Do you want to see it and listen to the heartbeat? Or think about the woman. These are all real cases. I am not making them up. You think about the woman who was on birth control because she has a hole in her heart and knew if she got pregnant, she could die. But she got pregnant anyway, and she had to make the difficult decision to choose between her life or the baby's. Or the woman who has breast cancer while she's pregnant and has to make the difficult decision to choose between her life or her baby's. These are not easy choices. They're not made on a whim. They're made through prayer and conversations with family. And yet we're going to require their doctor, once they've made those very difficult decisions, to say, I have to give you an ultrasound. I have to ask if you want to see it. And do you want to listen to the heartbeat? These are the most personal, painful decisions that some families have to make. Government has no place there. And that's why I ask you not to engross this bill. Thank you.